Wage raging in 150 cities this week. Their one demand, double their pay. This coming as Americans are feeling less secure in their jobs. Now, some here warning if these guys get their way, all workers will pay. Who's right? Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Buttner. This is Bulls and Bears. And here we are with the Bulls and Bears this week. Gary B. Smith, Tracy Byrnes, Jonas Max Feras, John Layfield, along with Bernard Whitman. Welcome to everybody. Okay, so Gary B., raise their pay and all workers pay?
Absolutely, or at least most of them, Brenda. Look, you know, the current hue and cry is for this $15 minimum wage. Think about it like this. If 100 people now are getting minimum wage, at the end, 95 won't get anything, and maybe 5 will get the minimum wage. Why? Because the $15 minimum wage, Brenda, is just a signal for companies to automate even faster. We've seen it at McDonald's. You go up to the, what does the cashier do? They take your order, they get your food, they give you change back. That can all be automated. In fact, it is being automated in McDonald's. You go to a bank, you know, when you and I grew up, you used to see a line of tellers. Now what do you see? You see maybe 1 or 2 tellers and a row of ATM machines. You go to the supermarket and you see self-service checkout. All those jobs are going to go away even quicker. You know, the cashiers, the supermarket clerks, if we go to a $15 minimum wage. All it is a sign that says, hey, if you have low skills or just entry to jobs, don't even bother. We can automate it.
Well, Bernard, let's think about the timing of this right now. We barely have a jobs recovery. Doubling the pay of these workers, isn't this the wrong time to do that?
It's the absolute right time to raise the minimum wage. I've been saying that for months and months and months. Doubling it to $15, no, I think that's too fast, too soon. But raising it to $10.10, as the Congress tried to do in the face of GOP opposition, is exactly where we should go. And in fact, there have been numerous studies, including a 17-year longitudinal study out of UNC, looked at state-level data from 1990 to 2006. I'm sure Gary B. is familiar with that showed that raising wages for low-wage workers, in fact, does not contribute to a decline in employment. A similar study from University of California showed the same thing, that hours worked does not decline. How can people who are making $7.25 raise their families? It's barely poverty level. These people should have to absolutely get paid a greater salary, but $15, no, that's too much.
All right, John, of course there are studies on both sides of this issue, but what do you think of it?
Well, I'll see your study and raise you a study. You're right. There are studies on both sides. Just like you said, the latest study came out that raising it to $15 an hour would cost about 500,000 jobs out there. Remember this, to get people out of poverty, minimum wage is not the best way to do it, is the earned income tax credit. The average family that has a minimum wage worker makes about $53,000 a year, because most of these are part-time, a spouse that is also working, not just the head of the family. Why 10-10? Why not 20-20? Look, President Obama raised the minimum wage for 300,000 federal workers out of a 140 million person workforce. This is all about politics. This is all about midterm elections. They could fix this. Believe me, they could fix this. They don't want to, because they want to pitch the poor against the rich at midterms and not talk about the economy or foreign policy.
Tracy, one of the arguments of the protesters is that these huge fast food giants have so much money, so many profits, but in fact, 80% of McDonald's are independently owned and operated franchises owned by small business owners.
And McDonald's has been struggling lately. Their numbers are really coming close as far as earnings go. They're not blowing it out of the water like everyone seems to think. Look, to pay these guys more, the big question is always, where is the money going to come from? Where's the mom and pop going to find the extra money to come up with that $15? Bernard agrees it's too much. I think 10-10 is too much. I think, again, the market must dictate what these people are paid, what everyone is paid. The market dictates what we are paid. And again, you should not strive to be on a minimum wage salary for the rest of your life. Maybe we should all empower ourselves and try to be better. Same thing happens with that earned income tax credit. It promotes apathy, because people know that the second they make too much money, they don't get it anymore. I think that is the problem. Everyone is expecting these handouts, and it is hurting the economy.
Jonas, should the market be determining this? What do artificially high wages do to job security?
it radically increases job insecurity, which is, and I'll get to why it's good, but that means higher unemployment because more people would want the job. $15 to do an easy job is pretty good pay. Let's be honest. It's not what the Swiss are voting on, which is $50,000 a year minimum wages, but it definitely will increase the amount of people that want that job, which is, let's think all the times we run into workers who do a lousy job. Isn't it usually a job that's like the DMV where there's no job insecurity? Like, you want high wages, even artificially high wages, make high productivity for the economy, high job insecurity, because you want that job. You know there's 10 people who want that job at your wage rate, and you'd get a little of that. Sure, consumer prices would go up. There's a lot of negatives. Unemployment might go up too, but you will see people working harder for $15 than the 10.
Well, I don't get that, Jonas, because no one gets fired at the DMV. So whether they make $7 an hour or $15 an hour, they're still sitting on their butts being bored.
That's because government workers have job security. That's my point. McDonald's workers aren't going to have job security at $15 an hour. They're not going to become magically union government workers. What they're going to have is more people that want that job, given the change or whatever, and that person's going to do a better job because of that pressure from outside for that person's job.
Well, I don't know, Gary B., I mean, there are long lines for hiring in all places right now. This is not a jobs recovery, really. Do you expect that raising the wage would hurt workers?
Well, a couple points, Brenda. One, Bernard cited a study by UNC. I went to Duke, so I really can't believe any UNC study, number one. Number two, yes, it's going to hurt workers. Look, even if Bernard implies that these franchise owners, as Tracy points out, could afford this, and I don't think they can, even if they could afford it, and the prices don't change for the burgers, where do they think this money comes from? It comes from the bottom line of these franchise workers. So what happens at the end of the year? The franchise worker says, geez, I was going to buy another franchise, and by the way, employ another 100 people, but now I have less money because I've had to pay these people more. So guess what? Those 100 new jobs that I was going to create just aren't going to be created. Bernard, the government cannot just mandate what the market doesn't want. They can't just artificially say, we want higher prices. Just like back in the 70s, they couldn't put a cap on gas prices and not expect lines to go around the block. The economics just doesn't work that way.
They can and they absolutely should set certain minimum standards.
So they can't rebut the market.
I've got a question for Tracy.
Unbelievable.
I've got a question for Tracy. Where does Tracy think the money is going to come from to pay the student loans for the further education they're going to get people out of minimum wage jobs? You're making $7.25. You don't have money to pay off a student loan. So how are these people possibly going to educate themselves so they can move out of these dead-end jobs?
So you just insulted every minimum wage worker on the planet because you're presuming that none of them have college degrees,
No,
and therefore they have no aspiration to get them either.
To further education, you're going to need student loans, and to get to pay off a student loan, it's going to be pretty hard to do that on $7.25 an hour.
People making $50,000 a month are having trouble paying off student loans these days. There's too much student loans going on. That's a separate debate. I don't think going to $15 an hour is going to make it easier to get out of student loan debt any more than it would for people coming out of law school today.
Okay, we've got to give the last word to Gary B.
Well, I tell you what, Bernard argues that the market doesn't work. I think the market does work, and every time we've had some big government program or government mandate, it hasn't worked.
All right, thanks, guys. And remember, we want you to get in and join the debate. The entire show using #BullsAndBears. Tweet often. We'll be answering them. Coming up.